my name is Kirk Munro, and I'm here with Brian Bork, and we're going to talk to you about this new feature that we have been working on in the Learn on Demand Systems platform that we have. The feature's name is Cloud Slice, and what this is about a look into the future of training using labs that are running in the cloud. We've been offering training services on our platform for a long time, many years now, and those training services have traditionally been offered via a bunch of virtual machines that are running inside of a lab, and that students connect to, and then they can follow through an instruction manual that guides them through what that lab looks like firsthand. And we are now going one step further with that, because our customers and ourselves, we have now needs, of course, in the world we're living in today, to deliver training in the cloud that helps people learn how to use the cloud. And so that's what we're talking about here, is this online training using the cloud and leveraging Cloud Slice. So Cloud Slice is the name of the feature. And what it basically is it's just about slicing up a piece of the cloud to give it to an attendee so that they can then learn from it inside of our platform. For the people who are attending, there are some people who I'm sure are customers of ours today that already know how to use the platform as is, as well as there might be some newcomers in the audience who haven't seen what we do before. So before I just get into the Cloud Slice piece, let me jump into one of our labs that, this is one of our traditional labs, just to show you. Oh, actually, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. One of our traditional labs, here we go, is, there we go. So this is an example of a lab in our platform that leverages the traditional, a bunch of virtual machines running inside of a data center along with an instruction manual approach to a lab. So what you see here, I just launched the lab, and so I'm launching this as a student. Or as an employee, because this could be in an organization where you're training employees. You're seeing our user interface where it presents within the lab what's the objective of the lab, what's the scenario that's trying to be covered in this particular lab instruction. And then when you go beyond the objective and the scenario and a bit of details about the lab itself, you get into the core user interface of our platform, which is what you see running here all around the main lab window. So this is a virtual machine that you're looking at inside of the main window here that I can control. And so I've got my start menu here, and I can launch programs and do all sorts of things with that. And then I've got this step-by-step guide on the right-hand side here that tells me what I need to do to actually complete this lab. Now, this lab's not about learning how to use a virtual machine. This is actually about demoing what that interface is. So it talks about the different features we have, like the task pane here at the bottom that shows you the tasks you're going to work on, and then the done button. So as you complete tasks, you can click on done to move to the following task. And then there's we support showing screenshots, so you can provide students with screenshots or videos or knowledge text. You can provide them with just extra information that goes above and beyond the basic task, but that may be useful to student. And so there's a lot of things like that that our platform provides to basically help them learn whatever technology that you want them to learn. Maybe it's working in Windows virtual machines, maybe it's working in Linux, maybe you're working with software on a website, and now with Cloud Slice, maybe you're working in the cloud. So I'm going to close this guy down because I don't need him open anymore. So now I'm going to get this guy out of the way. Come back to the concept of Cloud Slice. So this is probably a new term to you, and what this basically means, I already talked about it briefly, is giving a lab attendee, which could be a student if you're a training center, it could be an employee if you're training internal employees how to use cloud services that you use in your organization. It could be a prospect. Maybe you're a company that has software that you want prospects to be able to try out and see, and so this would allow you to give them a sandbox that they could try out something even in the cloud and basically not have to worry about all that initial setup that's required to get going. Just give them the environment so they can see the value it adds and maybe speed up the sales cycle. So all these different scenarios they were already useful before with in our existing environment with virtual machines, and now we're extending into the cloud to support that environment as well. So we have a blog post out there that talks about the basic concepts of this, which is teaching. I mean, this says teaching students, but this is really just teaching how to use the cloud. Students could be replaced with employees or prospects, depending on who you're actually teaching and trying to show something. And so this blog talks about Cloud Slice and what the technology is. And then there's a link at the bottom to a Cloud Slice blog article that was written before that goes much more in depth on some of what I've talked about here. So the history of where training has come from into training in 2017 and beyond, and where training is going to, and how we can actually meet that with our Lab on Demand platform. So that's a really good read if you want to get the details behind how this stuff works. And I've got to make sure that I've got to take a look at my chat window. And so, so aside from the blog article, there's also a link to a guide. That guide will help you understand some of the details about how do you get set up if you are already using Lab on Demand. How do you start using the guide with your labs? How do you start using Cloud Slice with your labs? That guide will walk you through that, and so there's a link to that here. Also, while we have the we have the original blog article with the transitionary from old to new, and this blog article it just kind of gives you a brief highlight of what Cloud Slice is. We are going to have a follow-up post very soon that talks about a follow-up to this this particular session, where we're going to offer a webinar. So this Facebook Live event is just talking about Cloud Slice, and I'll show you a few examples, and it's not going to be very long. And then we're going to do a more technically detailed webinar about if you're using our platform and you want to leverage Cloud Slice technology inside of your labs, how do you go about doing that? And so we'll cover that in a webinar that is scheduled for next week. We'll have a post going up soon with the date and time. That's going to happen during Ignite, but while it's during Ignite, we have scheduled it during one of the lunch hour periods at Ignite. So even if you're attending Ignite, you can still listen in because it won't interrupt one of your sessions. So watch for details on that on our blog, which you can access just by visiting learnondemandsystems.com and going to the LODS Tech blog here in the menu. So that's just kind of a high-level discussion about the term Cloud Slice. Let me show you what that actually looks like so that you can get a good feel for a Cloud Slice lab. So what I've got right here, this is the lab that I've already launched. And you see here on the right-hand side, there are instructions. And so this is just some sample instructions that I put in here because this is for demo. I haven't fully fleshed this out, but you can see here there's instructions where you can tell people that they can sign into the Azure portal, open the Azure Logic Apps service, and so on. And the reason why you would do that for this lab is because the goal of this lab, if you look at the title bar, is Introduction to Microsoft Azure Logic Apps. And so I'm presenting a student here or an attendee with the portal, and they can go to the Azure tab and they can find out what their credentials are. So I'm just going to go and sign in. I'm a student 5101075. And bear with me while I fumble through my password. Double check. Oh, one mistake. There we go. So what I've got here is I've got a lab that I've created that is leveraging Cloud Slice, and what that lab does is it dynamically provisions a slice of an Azure subscription. It gives that to the student so the student or the attendee can access it. And you see here I signed in using the student credentials, and it's showing you a welcome to Microsoft Azure because I've never signed on using this account before. So this is net new. So this is great where you have people who have never used Azure before. And I'm talking about Azure a lot here. I keep saying Azure, Azure, Azure. But the feature is Cloud Slice, We are working on future support for Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Platform. But for now, the functionality that we support today is Cloud Slice leveraging Microsoft Azure. And so here I've signed on to the subscription, never been in it before. I get presented with the welcome. So maybe later I'll do the tour. And now I can take a look at what is in this particular subscription, what's available to me as a student. Now I'm in here as a student in the lab that's been provisioned for me, and I can see I've got a resource group. That resource group was configured by the content creator, myself in this case, who created the actual lab. And so as part of this lab, I set up a resource group, and inside of that resource group, I provisioned an Azure Resource Manager template to deploy resources. So in the case where you want to train somebody on some technology and you want to fast forward, you want to get past all the, I need to create my subscription, then I need to perform a bunch of steps and set these things up. Instead of going through all those steps, which are educational and might be beneficial for some labs, there are other labs where you just want to jump in and have the pieces of the puzzle in place right in front of you and start learning that particular feature set. And so that's what this is an example of. I've got a Logic App resource group, and inside of that I've got my first Logic app that I created, and that was done as part of the provisioning of this lab. And so in here is a lab that is a Logic app that has a broken feature. And so this is the case where maybe I'm trying to show somebody how to do some troubleshooting. So I've configured the lab with something intentionally not working, and somebody can come in and follow instructions on our manual here about how to actually fix that. Or maybe they can go into a lab that is completely empty, but still has the actual subscription provision for them, and still has a resource group set up, and allow them to create resources inside that lab. And so there's obviously with cloud, it's basically all of the above, from empty, ground zero, I'm going to come in and create things, to I've got a whole big configuration deployed and it's all set, and there's data and there's services connected to one another, and that's all linked up, and the student comes in and they need to start working with that because I'm training them on maybe it's a service that we use in our organization. Maybe we work in IT for a health institution or in the government or some other institution where there are services in place, and you want to teach them how to use those services. This allows you to slice up a subscription, configure all those services, and give it to the attendee on a platter so that they can just jump in and start using it. And so in here, I can just go and start taking a look at like troubleshooting. So I can click on failed and see why something failed in this case. And so I can begin my troubleshooting process as a student, and it shows me there's an error here. What's that error all about? And so that's the kind of thing you can do in this type of lab. Now, no, I didn't open up the other one. Let me get back over here. I'm going to start up another lab launch here just to get this guy going. This is another Cloud Slice lab that is configured for the opposite scenario. Oh, on the wrong tab. Cancel that one. There. This is another Cloud Slice lab, but this one's starting at ground zero. And so I've got it running, so it should just connect here when I click on launch. And this one is similar to the other one in that it's offering up a slice of Microsoft Azure. And inside of that slice, in this case, all it's doing is giving the student an empty resource group. Now, this is going to take a minute to fire up because it's leveraging some cloud services. And in this case, I'm also deploying a virtual machine that I was using for some testing. But what this does, what this lab leverages that's important to mention is this lab allows me, the way it's configured, to serve up students or attendees with a subscription that allows them to create resources, but only the resources that I want them to create. So I configured this with an Azure resource policy that basically says anybody using this particular resource group, the one that I'm giving to the attendees, cannot create any other virtual machine sizes than a 0, 1, and 2 or D1 and D2. Those are the only sizes, all standard VMs. So you can configure a slice with restrictions to make sure that students don't go and create the most expensive virtual machine size that Microsoft Azure has to offer, which obviously you would want to avoid because you don't want to incur huge expenses. So we support provisioning the base lab, applying restriction policies to that lab so that you can specifically give students rights to create either a small set of resources or specific resources that you don't want them to create or combinations thereof. You can configure that according to your needs. And so that the students coming in can only do what you want them to do. I should just reach out and see, are there any questions? Because I'm just here going through all this content fairly quickly. If there are questions, feel free to fire them in the chat window and we will do our best to answer them. If you're just looking at this and you're starting to think about it and starting to wrap your head around it, we will have a bunch of representatives from Learn on Demand Systems at Microsoft Ignite next week, because Microsoft Ignite has a hands-on lab area. And so if you have questions that come on your mind after this is over and you don't want to reach us directly via email or whatever, you can always, if you're going to go to Ignite, you can always come and find our resources there and they will connect you to the right person at that event to be able to talk to you about creating cloud slice labs and find out what your needs are and answer questions that you might have on it. Now, let's see. So this one's taking a while to fire up, which is okay because you are dealing with cloud here, and so depending on the resources that you're leveraging, it can take a little while. Let me just minimize that and flip back over to my other one. Where's my window? There we are. So in this case, I mentioned, there's the error message here, and I know what this error comes from. This error comes from the fact that the resource template that is actually being used to provision the Logic app, it has an issue in that it's basically trying to leverage an RSS feed, but the RSS feed, the URL, it has a typo in it. And so you can configure these resources inside of here, and what you'll find is that this URL does not exist. And so that's what the issue is. So it moved permanently. This is a redirect, and so you can't just reference it directly. And so a student could resolve that by coming and grabbing this URL, opening it up, seeing that it's redirecting to another site, and then replacing the actual URL that's being used here with the appropriate link. I really want that other lab to come up, so bear with me while I see. I don't think it's there yet. No, it's taking a while. Now, these are demo labs, and I was tinkering with this right before the call, but so I may have put something in and slowing things down too much. But at any rate, let me get back to I'm clicking on the wrong windows. Let me get back to my Cloud Slice lab. And so basically it's the sky's the limit. What you would like to, we would love to have discussions with you about what you would like to create. Maybe you're somebody who in your environment you are still using mostly on-premises software and services, and you're just thinking about going to the cloud. Well, we can help you with training for what you have today, and because we support Cloud Slice, we can carry you into where your training might go tomorrow. Maybe you're already in the cloud. Well, we support that as well because we have Cloud Slice. Or if you're in that hybrid scenario, you can actually even create a lab that has a combination of virtual machines running inside of a data center and a Cloud Slice that goes with that, and tie those things together and make that all work inside of one environment. So I probably rambled on about Cloud Slice technology here enough for this session. As I mentioned, it was just a high-level overview. What I did want to flip over to before I cut out, I'm going to double check and see if there are questions. So let me just check my chat window. Let's see. Oh yeah, so just to reiterate, we will have a deep dive for developers who want to see how this stuff works coming up very soon. And you'll see a link for that on Facebook to learn how, or to see when that session is going to be, how you actually go through and create this stuff. That's coming up very soon. In the meantime, while you're waiting for that additional webinar, if you want to see that content, and maybe you're waiting for your to Ignite next week, you can contact us now or anytime thereafter by going to learnondemandsystems.com/contact, or just browse to learnondemandsystems.com and leverage the Contact Us page. And you can reach us here by phone or online, or fill out a form here, and we'll be in touch with you to find out what your needs are. So please let us know if you are interested in cloud-based technologies, what kind of things you would like us to do, and we look forward to having this conversation with you and helping you grow those needs. Oh, I just got one note. The exact time for the webinar is 12 noon in Eastern time on the 26th of September. So that's next Tuesday, if my calendar head is correct. Is that right? Yes, next Tuesday at noon Eastern. That's when we are going to have the webinar. So if you don't happen to see the details about that and you want to mark that in your calendar, go ahead and then come back to our website and find out how you can actually connect with us then. For those of you who were able to attend, thank you. For those of you who are attending or who are watching this recorded offline and you're coming back to it later, please reach out if you have questions, and we look forward to hearing from you.